My name's Tom Wilks, and in total I had 20 years in fire. I had 12 seasons in engines and hill attack, and finally applied for the Smokejumpers and got accepted. Actually 2 offers, one from Fairbanks, Alaska, and the other one was from Grangeville, Idaho. So at first I accepted the one for Alaska, since I had worked up there for 7 seasons. But in second thought, after a couple of weeks, they turned it down and accepted the one for Grangeville. So I like the history of Forest Service and firefighting, and that kind of swayed my decision to go with the old original smoke jumping operation. So that's the intriguing side of that to me. So unfortunately, as the story will go, I only had 1 season of smoke jumping. So after completing my smoke jumper training in Missoula, I was based in Grangeville with about 6 other rookies, and there was in total about 17 jumpers out of the base that summer of '87. And I'd already jumped a number of fires that summer. It was a pretty active time, and I felt pretty fortunate that, as a rookie, I got some pretty good number of fires jumped, and we stayed proficient. Every week we'd do a practice jump. And so in November of 1987, myself and another fellow rookie were on the up list, at the top of the up list, and there was very few jumpers there for one reason or another. Some, I think, were on fires, some had left early to go back to school, etc. And so we were a pretty short crew of jumpers, but it just worked out that myself and my fellow rookie, Randy Nelson, were at the top of the list. Randy was number 1 and I was number 2. So he was automatically going to be the fire boss on this fire. So I believe the location was on the Bitterroot Mountains, and it was a morning. It was about 7:30 in the morning or so, and we jumped the fire. Everything was easy, no problem getting into the jump spot. And we approached the tree, and it was a holdover lightning strike. It was about maybe a 60-foot trunk still standing, and about maybe 25 feet to the top of the tree was laying on the ground that had fallen off from the lightning strike. The fire had burned down through the center of the trunk, about 40, 50 feet down. And so and they had a cat face about maybe 10 feet or more above the ground. So the rest of the trunk was solid to the ground. The wind started picking up a little bit, and it started scattering a lot of ashes, because that cat face just was chimney effect and blew all hot embers out the top of the tree trunk. And they were spreading out all over the base. So Randy and I decided, okay, we'll split it. He'll take one side, I'll take the other side. And so we were scratching a line and trying to put out these little hot spots. And I had my back to the tree, and it was probably 20 feet or more from the tree trunk. And I heard this pop, and I could tell that meant the tree is falling. It was breaking off. And I didn't look back. I just instantly took off to run. And on the second step, my foot caught a ground root, and I tripped and fell flat on my face. The tree trunk busted off and came right down, right lengthwise of me from head to toe. Fortunately, it split on impact when it hit me. And when it did, it knocked me out momentarily. I regained consciousness, felt the heat sensation of all the hot coals that were still burning in the tree trunk. I pulled my arms in and I pushed up to escape from the tree. I couldn't move my legs. I couldn't get them out. And I looked back up the length of the tree, and Randy was already running towards me. I put my hands out and locked them together, and he grabbed my hands and he dragged me the length of the tree trunk to get me out. And he got me out at the end, and I still couldn't move my legs. I couldn't figure out what's going on. And I didn't feel anything from about my waist down. So Randy dragged me a little further away to put me in a safe spot. And then he said, what's your injuries? What's your injuries? I said, I think both my legs are burned. I said, both my arms are burned. And I had some skin hanging from my face, and there was some skin hanging from my wrists and stuff between my fire gloves and fire shirt. And so I said, we got a call for a medevac. I'm really hurt bad. So he said, okay. So he called for medevac and some more jumpers to come. The fire was spreading uphill. No, actually it was going downhill. And so he said, what can I do for you? And I said, dig a level spot and slide me into it and put my fire pack under my legs to give some temporary relief to my back. I said, I'm feeling really sharp pains in my lower back. He said, okay, so he did that. And I said, take my canteens and yours and pour them on my arms and legs. I said, I'm still burning up. I'm just feeling from the radiant heat had burned me really bad. So I was feeling my burns really intensely. So Randy did all this stuff, and in the meantime, he says, I gotta leave you because the fire's spreading, it's coming up this way. So I saw the trees walking towards me, burning and falling. So I rolled over and tried to crawl on my elbows to get away. But I only went maybe 3 or 4 feet. I just couldn't do it. It was just so excruciating to move. So I laid there and I rolled back over. And I said, maybe I can watch the trees that are coming down, that I could roll out of the way just in time. So I was anticipating the trees hitting me. By that time, he had come back and dragged me further away to a safe area that was open and scratched an area to make sure that nothing would come near me. And then he set me back up again. And then we waited for the jump plane to come from Grangeville. And a jump load of about 6 jumpers came in. Our jump foreman, Pat Wilson, was an EMT. So he came straight to me. And then the rest of the jumpers took care of the fire line. So when Pat got to me, and I had 2 tours in Vietnam. My second tour was a combat rescue air crewman. We'd fly into North Vietnam to rescue pilots that were shot down. So I knew a lot about medical training. I wasn't a current EMT, but back in 1970, 69 area, I was classified as an EMT. So I had a lot of medical training for my combat training experience. So I told him what happened. I said, I think my back is broken and I can't move my legs. I said, my neck hurts really bad. So he put a neck collar on me to immobilize that. Then he proceeded to start cutting my boot laces and take my boots off, and then he cut my pants to check my burns on my legs and stuff. And by this time, the fire line had been secured, and so the rest of the jumpers came back to assist. So everybody was cutting my clothes off, and I said, don't cut my underwear off. And he said, no, we won't do that. So then they just gently tried to everybody was helping, like holding my leg and wrapping gauze around my leg, and then they were doing the same with the other leg. And then one guy was working on my arm, and he was kind of fumbling around because both my arms were burned too. And I could see he was really excited and just feeling really anxious. And he was making me nervous because I was trying to keep myself calm because there's nothing I can do, until everything happens. And so his name was Bill Martin. He later died in a parachute jump, training jump. Anyhow, Billy was over me and I grabbed him real quick and I said, Billy, take it easy. I'll be all right. Don't worry. And it calmed him down. So he went back to doing what he was doing and bandaged my arm. And then DeCullough, who's here at this activity, I just ran into him. He was also, I believe, was an EMT. And he supervised putting this portable, collapsible, or 3-piece or 2-piece stretcher that you can use for jumping in. And he put that all together, and then he directed everybody, okay, roll me over one side, then slip the stretcher there, okay, now roll me over and kind of slide me on this. And then he made 2 loops with some rope at the top end of the strip, and then he had to carry me downhill to where a waiting helicopter had finally arrived. And I had to hold onto the 2 straps so I wouldn't slide down the stretcher because it was a pretty steep grade to get me down to the landing spot. And so I was holding on to that while they took me downhill to the helicopter. And so Pat got on the helicopter and after they put me in, and then the 3 of us, the pilot, Pat, and myself, we flew back to Grangeville. And they had an ambulance waiting at the jump base for me put me in the ambulance, took me over to the clinic that was in Grangeville. And I remember telling the doctor when I saw him, I said, "Oh man, my back hurts so bad. I need a shot of morphine right now." And he says, "It's right here. Here you go." Boom. So then just a matter of a couple minutes, it numbed out all that pain. He said, "Okay, now we're going to roll you in to take x-rays." I said, "Okay, I want to see those x-rays after you get them." And he goes, "Okay." So they x-rayed me, and then he came out and showed me the x-rays. And he said, "It's pretty bad." And I go, "Yeah, it sure is." It was 2 shattered vertebrae, the L1 and 2. I mean the 2 and 3. So, and 3rd-degree burns in both arms and legs, and a concussion. And I think a sprained finger and a couple other minor things. And so then from there, they took me by ambulance to Moscow hospital. So they drove me all the way up to there, put me in the hospital there, tore off all the bandages, put new ones on, and then just kept me loaded up on morphine for a good couple of days. They were trying to stabilize my burns first. And Randy Nelson came to visit me while I was there. And I woke up out of one of those delusional sleeps, from the morphine. And he was there, and he said, "Hey, how you doing?" And we visited for a little while, and then he left. And so I had a number of visitors come from Grangeville and Missoula. Pat Wilson came, our jump foreman, and some guys out of Missoula came to visit me and stuff that I hardly knew. I only knew them as my trainers and stuff. I did jump a couple fires with some Missoula guys. So that's how I was really pleasantly surprised to see all these visitors come. So then on the 3rd day, the doctor that was taking care of me in Moscow, I said, "I want to be sent down to the University of Utah Medical Center. It's the Intermountain Region Burn Center. I want to go there." And I knew about it from some past history and information. I just knew that was a good place to go. So they scheduled an air med flight, flew me down there late that afternoon, and put me in there, and they did the same thing. They took all the bandages out, gave me new ones, took x-rays, same injuries. So I was in the hospital there for about a week because they were still trying to stabilize my burns. And they would take me into a scrub room twice a day and debrief the burns. And it felt like somebody had just taken a scrub brush and just rubbing me raw. It was so sensitive and painful. And then they finally decided they could do surgery on my back. And so when the doctor came to tell me, that was the specialist for my back injury, bone specialist, he's standing by this side of the bed and he's talking to me, and he goes, "Well, this is pretty bad, And he says, "I don't know if you'll ever walk again." I reached up and grabbed him by the lapel and pulled him down on my face. And I said, "You effing fix my back and you effing watch me walk again." And he was pushing on my chest trying to get away. And he says, "I can tell you're really upset." I finally let go of him. He ran out of the room. And the nurse was just like, "Wow." She goes, "I've never seen that happen before." So he leaves, and then the next morning they did the back surgery on me. It was about 6 hours of surgery. And when I recovered and was awake again, he came back to visit with me and gave me some information about my back injury and stuff like that. And he says, "It was just like shattered popcorn in there. What happened is on the trunk of the tree must have been right where a branch used to be. And that round of the branch is where it just nailed a perfect round circle in my spine. So it shattered like a third of the L3, and it shattered about 2/3 of the L2, but it was kind of a roundish shape, so it wasn't exactly centered." And he said, "You were so lucky because the main spinal cord was just slightly torn, and so you're going to be able to move your legs." And he says, "And they think you'll be able to walk. That's the best I can tell you." I said, "That's enough." I said, "I'll take care of the rest." So they had to put a brace about 4 inches long on the side of my spine. They fused the 2 injured vertebrae, and they fused them into 2 good vertebrae above and below it. So 4 vertebrae are out of commission. So I was in the burn unit for another 3 weeks. So by this time, it's been 4 weeks. Oh, after the first week, yeah, at the end of the second week, they finally decided they'd see if I could walk. So they helped me out of bed, stood me up, and they said, try to walk across the room. I took 2 steps and I passed out. And they were just shuffle steps, but there were nurses standing on either side of me. They caught me, put me back in bed, and they said, a little low on blood, so they gave me another pint of blood. And then he said, you'll walk. And then he left. So after that, every day, they would get me up a couple times a day and they'd have me walk. It took me a week to get from my bed to the bedroom door. That's how long, it was just a struggle and a shuffle to just get that far. And then shuffle back to the bed. So after that, I finally was able to get out of my room and kind of walk. I walked with a limp because I did the surgery on my right side, so I was the weak side from the surgery. So I'd walk around this central nursing station, and they would go around it 2 or 3 times and then go back to my room and lay down and rest. I mean, I worked up a sweat. This was hard to do. So I would do this 2 or 3 times a day, but I also still had to go through the debriding process for my burns. They hadn't taken care of my burns yet. So I'd do that twice a day, and they'd go, you want the morphine before or after? So I'd try it either way. Either way still hurt. But I would just grit my teeth and just let the tears roll down with it. They'd scrub my legs. And I'd hear all the other guys that were in there that were getting scrubbed, and they were just pleading and begging, stop, stop. I just knew I had to go through it, so I would just grit my teeth and just close my eyes and just let them do it. And then they'd wrap me up again, take me back. I never was able to move around much other than when I was up to walk. So at the end of the 4th week, they said, okay, now we're going to send you down to rehab. And I said, okay. And when I got down, they sent a wheelchair to take me there. It was on the ground floor, and I was on the 3rd floor. And so the guy that came with a wheelchair to transport me there, I told him, I said, rehab starts now, I'm going to walk. And so I walked out to the elevator from the burn unit, and then rode the elevator down to the ground floor, and then I walked down. It seemed like forever in miles, but it probably wasn't that far. It was a pretty good walk, probably as far as we walked to get here. And walked into the rehab unit. It was just totally exhausted and just sweating. It was just an arduous walk. And waited until they said, okay, we got room for you, and they took me in my room. And then this tech came in and had this little instrument that helps you be able to pick up things. So that you don't have to reach down, and it has a little extension on it, and it has little pincers, and you can pick up things with it. She says, you'll get really handy with using this, and you'll even be able to tie your shoes with this. And I go, I can tie my shoes now, I don't need it. She goes, what are you talking about? I said, I can bend over and tie my shoes right now. Because I was wearing a pair of sweats and had tennis shoes and a t-shirt on. And she goes, show me. So I was sitting on the bed, and there was 2 beds in there, and I put my feet on the bed frame of the other bed, and I slowly bent down, untied one of my shoes, slowly sat back up, slowly went back down, tied my shoe, and then slowly sat back up. She just stood there with her mouth gaping open. She goes, I have never seen anybody do that before from an injury like yours. And so she goes, well, I guess you don't need it, but here it is. So she left the room, and shortly after that, the rehab doctor came in with his technicians, and he goes, I was told you can bend over and tie your shoes. I said, yeah, show me. So he did it again. And when I got done, I looked up, and the 2 or 3 of them were standing there with their mouths hanging open and going, well, I've never seen anybody do that before. So I was really determined to recover as fast as I could and be as whole as I could. Plus, I was in really good physical condition when I got injured, and I'd always been a real athletic kind of guy, so it was, rehabbing was nothing new. I had some injury from high school or college football and stuff like that, so I knew I have to fix myself, and the only way to do that is do it, you know. And so this was just the same mindset. I just have to do this. I have to get over this injury. So he starts charting out what we're going to do, weight training and walking and this and that and the other and stretching, da 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 da. And I said, well, how long am I going to be here? And he said, could be 2 months. And I go, no, I'm out of here at the end of the week. It's 1 week. Yeah, right, sure. So, so he left, and so the physical fitness technician took over from there, and we went into this little weight room, kind of an exercise place, and they had me sitting down in a chair kind of like this, and they had to lift up on 2 bars, and there was a weight behind me, and they could move the pin to whatever the weight was. So they started off with, like, say, 25 pounds, and they're just like, you can put more on. So we did it again. Got up to about 75 pounds, and the technician's going, it's not hurting your back? And I go, no, no problem. I said, this is easy enough. Okay, so I kept going. I finally got up to about 150 pounds. And I said, okay, I'm starting to feel it. And so they're going, that's pretty good for the first day. You know, I'm surprised you went over 75. I thought that was really pushing it. So every day we did that exercise, and I'd exercise twice a day. And there were some other things. I was doing arm curls with dumbbells and things like that. And I was progressing really quite fast. And eventually I got that hand lifting weight up to about 350 pounds. And the doctor said, you for sure are not hurting at all from doing it? And I said, no, I'm not. I said, I'm keeping my back perfectly straight while I do this. I didn't have a brace yet. So they finally gave me a custom brace while I was in rehab. So I could wear that. That was for protection mostly. It wasn't really for anything else. You know, you're going to be very careful when you have a nasty injury. You're not going to do anything to overextend yourself. And so he said, yeah, you'll take this home, you'll wear it, and it had 2 Velcro straps on the sides to open it up, take it off so I could shower and things like that. And so on a Friday, what I claimed would be the last day that I was going to be there, I said, I'm going home today, aren't I? And he goes, well, I don't know. You have to pass the test. And I said, okay, give me the test. So there were some lifting things I did. And then I had to go out and walk on some uneven terrain outside on kind of a rolly driveway. I had to step up on a curb and back down and up and back down. It was just a little tricky. It wasn't too, it was just to see how my balance was. And then I had to go up 3 flights of stairs and back down without holding the handrail. And since this was the side that did the surgery, I had to drag this right leg practically, and I would just hold my right arm and make myself not reach for the handrail. And I went up those flights. It was easier going up. Coming down was harder because I had to walk a little bit sideways and step real gingerly because it was weak. So I got down, and then we went back to the doctor's office, and he goes, well, how'd he do? And she said, he passed. He passed? He goes, yep, he passed. Well, I guess you're going home then. So then he said, okay, I have to see you in about a week. So they had me scheduled up to fly back. So I came back, and you know, I was starting to get a little huskier and was putting a little bit of weight on because I was doing my own workout, and he asked me what you're doing. And so I said, I'm lifting weights. And I said, I'm bench pressing. He says, you're bench pressing? I said, it's a machine. I said, I'm not doing free weights. He says, how much you lifting? I said, oh, about 125, 150 pounds right in there. I said, I'm taking it really easy. I'm just doing high reps and light weights. And he goes, okay, as long as you don't hurt yourself. I said, no. I said, if I feel any kind of twinge, I stop doing whatever it is. I don't overextend myself. So then I said, come back in another 6 weeks. So I came back in another 6 weeks. At the same time, the burn specialist was checking my skin grafts too, and I had to wear these real tight compression sleeves on my arms and my legs until the grafts were healed. So I came back in 6 weeks, and I saw the back specialist or the bone specialist and his staff all at one time. And I was wearing a pair of sweatpants and a t-shirt. And so they said, can you take your t-shirt off? And he goes, why? You're starting to really fill out and look fit again. And I said, yeah. I said, well, I've been bench pressing. He goes, I don't know, how much? And I said, well, I'm up at about 250 now. He goes, no. I said, yeah. He goes, you sure this is not hurting you? I said, I'm not putting any strain on my lower back. I said, it's all in the arms and chest. I said, I'm making sure I'm not doing it wrong. And I said, I'm doing deadlifts too. And he goes, deadlifts? And I said, I'm making sure my back is straight up and down. And I said, it's light enough. It's not super heavy. I said, it's only maybe 175 pounds. He goes, I can't believe you. You're just amazing. And I said, yeah. And I started running again. He goes, running? And I said, yeah, I'm only running to maybe 50, 75 yards, and it's easy jog. I said, it's pretty difficult to run. And he goes, well, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. So he says, I'll see you in another 6 weeks. So by the time I saw him again, by this time I'd been running at least once a week, 20-mile runs. And he just said, I can't believe you. I said, I got a call from Grangeville to see if I could come back and work there, not as a jumper, but as a firefighter with their helicopter operation. And he goes, well, I don't know. Let's give it another 6 weeks, you know, and then I'll decide. So this was now about late April, and he finally said, okay, you can go back to fire. You can go firefighting again. He said, I don't recommend you do it because it's going to be a real major strain on your back. And for sure you can't parachute anymore. I said, okay. So I called the jump base, told the base manager, yeah, I can come back and work in fire. I said, there's a couple limitations to it. And for another few weeks, I have to be sort of on light duty. I can't go on any fires, but I can work around the base and stuff. So that was part of it because I still had my skin grafts that needed to heal. And so I went back to the jump base, and this is now about May, mid-May, yeah. So I was back at the jump base, hello to everybody and all that kind of stuff, and went back to work. And then after a few more weeks, then I was able to take the compression sleeves off. Doctor said, but always keep long sleeves on for a while because it'll cause discoloring in your skin from the grafts. So that after, you know, by this winter, you won't have to be concerned with that in the future. So that's pretty much how that story went, how fast and short and sweet my smoke jumper career was. And then from there, I moved on to the lower 40, or other places in the lower 48. I worked out of Elko, Nevada. I worked in hill attack there as the assistant hill attack manager there. And then I went up to Redding, California, and worked for the Forest Service there in prescription burning, and would go on forest fires as a division supervisor and a few other positions. And then I went back down to Santa Barbara, where I grew up, and worked at the air tanker base there, and that's where I finished my years in fire. That's where I finished off my 20 years. And then I went to work for the state of California as a disabled employment counselor. And had 13 years with them, and then retired.